In this video, I'll show the first steps that we would need to do after we download a Goldstack project. But to give a bit of context, I'll first show how the module was set up that we're going to be using in this video. So specifically, we're going to use a project that will include the Lambda and Express module and the Next.js and Bootstrap module. We've chosen here the project name Goldstack Getting Started to deploy into a development environment first in the Sydney region. Then what we are going to be developing is a Next.js application deployed on the domain app.goldstack.party, which will fit under the goldstack.party hosted zone domain, which is already set up in AWS. And we're also going to configure the Lambda Express backend module with the Lambda name Goldstack Getting Started API and the API domain getItStartedAPI.goldstack.party, which will put its record into the same hosted zone as the Next.js application. And finally, I've provided the access key and secret access key here as well. Now I jumped ahead here to the step where we can download our project. If you want to learn more about the previous steps in the configuration tool, then please check out the How Does It Work section on the Goldstack documentation, where we have another video link that focuses a bit more on these steps. So with that being said, we are ready to download our module. I just click download here, and a zip file will be downloaded for me. And what I can do next now, I'll just go into the Explorer and extract this. So, and after unzipping this package, I can just open that in Visual Studio Code. And I shall have my project here. Now, it will first ask me to install recommended extensions, which you should definitely do. If it does ask you, that just shows that you are missing some extensions that are really vital to work with this project. Specifically, we need the ESLint and the Prettier extension, which help with automated formatting of the source code. So we just click install here. All right, with that out of the way, the next step that we are going to do is to find a TypeScript file within our project. So in our case, we use these two modules, app Next.js Bootstrap and Lambda Express. And I'll just drill here into Lambda Express. And in the source folder, I should find lots of TypeScript files. And now I maybe just open server.js. And now upon opening the first TypeScript file, it will ask me to use the specific TypeScript version that's embedded within this workspace. And here we should definitely click allow as well. Now, I don't know what this one is. TypeScript language service died 5 times. This one is sometimes a little bit janky. The usual way to fix this is firstly to restart VS Code, but you can also go into the VS Code commands, and there's one handy one that's called restart TypeScript server, and that usually does the trick as well. But anyway, it seems here that our TypeScript is all set up and ready. So now that we have got VS Code set up, next thing we can do is to make sure that all our dependencies and everything is downloaded for our project, that we can build and run it. For this, we just go into a terminal. And in this terminal, we issue the command yarn. Now, if anything doesn't work for you here, then please confirm that you got the right versions of everything installed. What you will need is Node version 12 or higher, and Yarn version 1.5 or higher. And also, it's recommended to have Docker installed. Sorry, I'm just always issuing this command wrong. So version 19 or higher will also work here. But anyway, I have got all the right dependencies installed. So I'll just run yarn. And now it will start downloading all the dependencies for the project, which usually should take around 1.5 to 2 minutes, depending on your internet speed. Now, in my case, everything here ran smoothly and it was able to install everything in around 1.5 minutes. And don't worry here when it says done with warnings, there'll usually be some of those, but as long as you get a yellow status here, all is good. Now, the next thing that we would usually like to do is deploy the infrastructure for our modules to see that everything has been configured right with that. Let's say in our Lambda Express here, we can go back into goldstack.json and just see here that all the configuration options that we have set in the wizard are set as we would expect them. So here I got the name of the Lambda and the API that I want to use and also the hosted zone. So now in order to deploy the infrastructure for this Lambda, I right click here on the package for the Lambda, say open an integrated terminal, and just issue here yarn infra app dev. So this will now roll out all the infrastructure that we need for our Lambda, which in our case is mostly a Lambda and an API gateway. If you want to see what infrastructure is going to be rolled out, you can always find it here in the infra folder where everything is defined in Terraform. And of course, if you want, you can also modify any values here, such as, giving the Lambda a smaller or larger memory size or making any kind of other modifications you would like. Now, if everything works out all right, we should receive some details of the Lambda that was deployed, and all the infrastructure would have been stood up on AWS. And what we can do now is check quickly if our Lambda works. But before we do that, we just have to quickly deploy it by using the command yarn deploy dev. This process should usually take less than a minute. And again, at the end of it, we should get some details about our Lambda. And now that we got the infrastructure deployed and the Lambda deployed, we can test it. So we go here to Goldstack JSON and we can obtain the API domain that we have configured from here. So I simply copy this and go to Google Chrome, prefix the URL with HTTPS, and I should get a response such as the following, which corresponds to how we have actually configured our server. So we just have a simple root handler here that just returns hello. And now, of course, the sky's the limit here for you to add additional routes and do other things with the server. Next, we're going to go to our Next.js project, where I'll just close this here, right-click on the Next.js package, say open an integrated terminal. And now here we're going to do the same thing. First, yarn infra app dev, which again will take a while because we're getting SSL certificates, we're rolling out a CloudFront distribution. These things, they just take a while. Now, after around 3 to 4 minutes, the infrastructure would have been stood up. And next, we would have to deploy our application into the infrastructure, which we again do by running yarn deploy dev. So the same command as for the Express server, but in this case, it will package up the Next.js application and upload it to S3. That will usually be done quite quickly. And after we have deployed it, we can again go into the Goldstack config file and check the website domain that we have specified here. So I'm again gonna copy that, go to Chrome, prefix HTTPS, enter the domain, and I can see my Next.js application working here. Now to finish things off here, we'll now just make our UI and our API work together and really take advantage of this monorepo setup that Goldstack provides us with. So for this, we first are going to clear up our terminals here a little bit, and we go right back to the root, which we can do by just creating a new terminal. And now I'm going to issue the command here, yarn compile watch, which may make sure that all our TypeScript is always transpiled into JavaScript and that modules can use each other's compiled JavaScript. So now in order to connect the UI with the API, we go here into the API and we just check what is the package name here. So this one here is simply called Lambda Express. We can also change this to something else, but for now we just leave it as Lambda Express. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. And now I'll go into Apps Next.js Bootstrap, open that in a terminal. And now here I'll just say yarn add Lambda Express add 1.0.0, which is the version that we currently have for the API. And what it will have done now is added our API as a dependency for the UI. You can check that in the package JSON. So here we have our API as a dependency, and that is resolved automatically within our monorepo. Now in my UI, what I can do, I just see pages. So here we just have this simple index.html page, and now I can add an import here that uses, and what we can import here is the method getEndpoint, which we can see here is in the module.typescript file, which will just give us back the endpoint of our application. So here we got getEndpoint, and what we can do here, we're just going to modify the example a little bit, and instead of using this hard-coded one, I am going to add the endpoint from my Lambda in here. All right, now, so I've got this fetcher here, so that's all good. And we can see what kind of data we get back here. And now, of course, to test this, I ideally don't want to go ahead and deploy these both things to AWS again. But for this, I can just do some local testing. And to do that, I just go here into my API, open an integrated terminal, and I issue yarn watch. Now we can also start our Next.js server locally. For this, we right-click here, open an integrated terminal, and again issue yarn watch. So now we can watch our Next.js application in the browser. For this, I'll just copy this URL, go back to Chrome, enter it here, and it starts up the same application we have seen deployed on AWS. But now when I click here, I get now as response data equals hello. Now let's do a quick update to this by going into our API server. We're going into root here where it says hello. We just change this into hello Goldstack. Now we can check the command where we are watching our server and it is restarting it because of these changes. We go back to our application and we see here this changes to hello Goldstack. So this is really a very easy and fast way to do local development. But now let's see if we can deploy our changed application as well. First thing we need to do for that is make sure that the course configuration is correct on our Lambda. For this, I'm going to go here in the Lambda Goldstack JSON, look for the course configuration, and I need to put here now the domain that is used by my front end, which in our case was app.goldstack.party. And we can also look up the domain that's used here by going back to Goldstack JSON for our Next.js application. And we see here that is our website domain. So we need to unlock that for course access. Otherwise, things do not work. So now I'm going to stop here, the local servers, the API first. And now all I would have to do is first roll out the infrastructure here again, because we have just changed a configuration on the Lambda that's actually passed over to the Lambda as an environment variable. And if we don't deploy our infrastructure, the changed environment variables for our Lambda are not deployed. Once the infrastructure is updated, we deploy the Lambda. For usual changes, we don't need to deploy the infrastructure, just in the specific case, because we have changed the course configuration here. Usually, it's more than enough to just deploy the Lambda. But even updating the infrastructure in this case doesn't take very long, maybe 20, 30 seconds. Likewise, deploying the Lambda is quite quick. So now we go to our Bootstrap application. I'm also going to stop the watch job here, and I just do a yarn deploy dev, because we haven't really changed anything in our infrastructure. Therefore, we can just go ahead and deploy our Next.js application into the S3 bucket again. This deployment should also take under a minute. Now, finally, we can check out if everything looks all right deployed on the server. For this, we go to Chrome again, and we go to the URL of our Next.js application, which is app.goldstack.party. We see here's our Next.js application. If we see toggle data display, we get the response from our updated Lambda. Finally, when we are all done with the project and we maybe don't need it anymore, we can just wind down the infrastructure again by running yarn infra destroy dev, both for the Next.js application and then for the Lambda Express application as well. Now, there's of course a lot more things we can do with the project or with the modules that we have chosen here. For this, I would recommend you to go to the Getting Started guides for the specific modules, and also, of course, look into things such as if we have a Next.js module, we can go to the Next.js documentation and find out more about it. Really speaking, these modules, they are made to enable you to do almost anything. So you can change the infrastructure in Terraform, you can change all the source code, really whatever you want to do with it. The idea of the starting template is just to give you something that helps you have something up and running as quickly as possible, but then not constrain you in the things that you can do going on from here. So you can use other bits of AWS infrastructure such as DynamoDB or even an RDS instance or whatever you like. It's really there's no limit to the things you can do with your project from here.